The dust storm came without warning that September afternoon in 1882, turning the sky over Redemption Creek the color of old copper. Sarah Montgomery pressed her face against the general store window, watching tumbleweeds cartwheel down Main Street like demons fleeing Judgment Day. At 23 years old, she had lived through dozens of these desert tantrums, but something about this one felt different. The air itself seemed to crackle with possibility and danger. "Get away from that glass, girl," old Mr. Henderson barked from behind the counter. "Storm like this can send debris flying through windows quick as bullets." Sarah stepped back just as the door burst open, bringing with it a wall of sand and a figure she would never forget. He stumbled inside, hat clutched in one hand, his dark coat whipping around him like wings. When he looked up, Sarah felt her breath catch. His eyes were the color of sage after rain, ringed with dust and exhaustion. Blood seeped through a tear in his shirt sleeve. "I need supplies," he said, his voice rough as gravel. "Bandages, whiskey, and whatever food travels well." Mr. Henderson's face went pale. He recognized the stranger, even covered in dirt as he was. "We don't serve your kind here, Cole Garrett," the old man said, his hand sliding toward the rifle beneath his counter. Sarah's heart kicked against her ribs. Cole Garrett. The name alone was poison in her household. This was the man who had killed her father's brother in a gunfight 5 years ago. The man her father, Sheriff Thomas Montgomery, had sworn to see hang. The man whose bounty poster hung in every establishment from Texas to California. Cole's hand moved to his gun, but the movement was slow, pained. Sarah saw him sway slightly on his feet. "I'm not looking for trouble," he said. "Just supplies. I can pay double." The tension in the room pulled taut as a hanging rope. Sarah knew she should stay silent. She knew her father would be furious. But something in Cole Garrett's eyes called to her, something desperate and honest that she couldn't ignore. "I'll get what he needs," she heard herself say. Both men turned to stare at her as if she'd sprouted horns. "Miss Sarah, your father would," Mr. Henderson began, but she cut him off with a look her mother had taught her, the one that could stop arguments dead. She gathered bandages, a bottle of whiskey, dried beef, hardtack, and a canteen of water. Her hands moved with purpose while her mind raced. This was madness. Pure, undeniable madness. Cole Garrett watched her with those storm-colored eyes, confusion mixing with gratitude. When she brought the supplies to the counter, he pulled out a leather pouch heavy with coins. "How much?" he asked. $10, she said, though the supplies were worth half that. He didn't argue, just counted out the money with hands that trembled slightly. As he reached for the bundle, their fingers touched. The contact lasted only a second, but Sarah felt it like lightning striking dry wood. Something sparked between them, something neither of them could name. "Why did you help me?" Cole asked quietly, so Mr. Henderson couldn't hear. Sarah looked into his face, really looked, and saw not the monster from her father's stories but a man who looked bone-tired and soul-weary. "Because everyone deserves a chance to survive," she whispered back. "Even their enemies." Cole's expression shifted, surprise flickering across his weathered features. He was perhaps 30, with a scar cutting through his left eyebrow and dust-caked stubble covering his jaw. He looked like trouble and danger wrapped in human skin, yet Sarah couldn't look away. "Your father is Sheriff Montgomery," he said. It wasn't a question. She nodded, lifting her chin defiantly. Cole's laugh was short and bitter. "Then you just made the worst decision of your life, helping me." He turned to leave, supplies tucked under his good arm, but paused at the door. The storm outside howled like a living thing. "What's your name?" he asked without turning around. "Sarah," she answered, though every instinct told her to stay silent. Cole looked back then, and the weight of his gaze pinned her in place. "Thank you, Sarah Montgomery. I won't forget this." Then he was gone, swallowed by the churning dust. Sarah stood frozen, knowing that in those few minutes, her entire life had shifted on its axis. She had just helped the man her father wanted dead more than anything in the world. And the strangest part? She didn't regret it. Not one bit. 3 days after the storm, Sarah couldn't stop thinking about Cole Garrett's eyes. She told herself it was just curiosity, just the natural human interest in things forbidden and dangerous. But when she lay in bed at night, listening to her father pace downstairs and curse Cole's name, she felt something stir in her chest that had nothing to do with curiosity. It felt like recognition, like seeing a mirror of her own trapped soul in another person's face. The feeling terrified her more than any outlaw ever could. Her father had been in a rage since learning that someone had helped Cole escape the storm. Mr. Henderson, bless his cowardly heart, had claimed not to see who provided the supplies. But Sheriff Montgomery wasn't stupid. He knew his daughter had been in the store. He knew, and yet he said nothing, which somehow made everything worse. The silence between them had grown thick as smoke, choking the air in their small house. Sarah's mother had died 3 years ago, and without her softening presence, father and daughter had become like two stones grinding against each other, all sharp edges and friction. On the 4th day, Sarah rode out to Red Rock Canyon with a basket of wildflowers, claiming she wanted to visit her mother's favorite spot. Her father barely looked up from cleaning his rifle. The canyon was a 2-hour ride northeast of town, a slash of crimson stone cutting through the desert like a wound in the earth. Sarah had always loved it here, loved the way the wind whispered through the rocks and the shadows painted stories on the stone walls. She tied her horse near a small spring and began climbing the narrow path her mother had shown her as a child. That's when she saw him. Cole Garrett sat on a flat boulder overlooking the canyon, his injured arm bound with fresh bandages. He must have heard her approach because he turned slowly, hand moving to his gun before recognition softened his stance. "You followed me," Sarah said, though that wasn't quite right. More like fate had guided them both to the same impossible place. Cole shook his head. "I've been camping here. This canyon's been my hideout for a week now. I should be asking what you're doing in outlaw territory." Sarah climbed up beside him, propriety and common sense left behind on the canyon floor. She sat on the boulder, leaving a careful foot of space between them. The sun was beginning its descent, painting the rocks in shades of fire and blood. "My mother loved this place," she said. "She used to say the canyon held secrets older than human memory." Cole nodded slowly. "It does. Apache holy ground, or it was before we came and claimed it all." His voice carried an unexpected sadness. This wasn't the cold-blooded killer from her father's stories. This was something else entirely, something complicated. "Why did you kill my uncle?" The question burst out before Sarah could stop it. She had to know. Had to understand why her father's heart had turned to stone 5 years ago. Cole was quiet for so long she thought he might not answer. When he finally spoke, his words came slow and measured. "James Montgomery drew on me first. We were both working for the Harrison Ranch, both courting the same woman, both young and stupid. He challenged me in front of the whole town. I tried to walk away. Your uncle wouldn't let it drop." "So you shot him," Sarah said flatly. Cole's jaw tightened. "He fired first. Missed. I didn't. I've regretted that bullet every day since, but I won't apologize for defending my own life." The honesty in his voice struck Sarah like a physical blow. This wasn't how the story went in her house. In her father's version, Cole had gunned down James Montgomery in cold blood over a card game, laughing as he did it. But looking at the regret etched into Cole's face, Sarah saw a different truth. She saw a man who had made a terrible choice in a split second and paid for it with every breath since. "My father will never stop hunting you," she warned. Cole smiled without humor. "I know. Thomas Montgomery's hatred is legendary. I've been running from it for 5 years." He looked at her then, really looked, and Sarah felt that lightning strike again. "So why are you here, Sarah? Why risk your father's wrath to sit with his greatest enemy?" It was a fair question. Sarah wished she had a simple answer. "Because I need to know the truth," she said. "I'm tired of living in a house built on hate. I'm tired of watching my father destroy himself trying to destroy you." Cole reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and brushed a strand of dark hair from her face. His fingers were calloused and gentle. "You're nothing like what I expected," he said softly. "Thomas Montgomery's daughter. I thought you'd be hard as nails and twice as sharp." Sarah laughed despite herself. "Maybe I am. Maybe I'm just hiding it better than he does." They sat together as the sun painted the canyon walls in impossible colors. Cole told her about growing up on a failing ranch in New Mexico, about the drought that killed his parents' cattle, about the choices that led him down a path he never intended to walk. Sarah told him about her mother's death, about the way grief had poisoned her father's heart, about feeling trapped in a town where everyone knew her story before she could write it herself. They talked until the stars appeared, countless and bright in the desert sky. It should have felt wrong, sitting with her father's enemy, but instead it felt like the first honest conversation Sarah had experienced in years. When she finally stood to leave, Cole caught her hand. "Don't come back," he said, though his eyes pleaded the opposite. "This can only end badly." "I know," Sarah whispered. But even as she mounted her horse and rode home through the darkness, she knew she would return. Something had been set in motion that day in the general store, something neither of them could stop now. Her father was waiting on the porch when she arrived, rifle across his knees. "Where were you?" he demanded. Sarah met his gaze without flinching. Red Rock Canyon. Mother's favorite place. It wasn't a lie, but it wasn't the whole truth either. Her father studied her face in the lamplight, seeing something there that made his expression darken. "Stay away from that canyon," he said. "Cole Garrett's been spotted in that area. It's not safe." Sarah nodded and went inside, her heart hammering. Her father knew. Maybe not everything, but enough. The walls were closing in, and Sarah realized with sudden clarity that she would have to make a choice soon. Her father's love or the truth she'd found in an outlaw's eyes. The safety of everything she'd known or the dangerous freedom of everything she could become. That night, sleep wouldn't come. Sarah lay awake, watching moonlight paint patterns on her ceiling, and wondered how falling could feel so much like flying. The confrontation came exactly 1 week later, on a Tuesday morning that started like any other and ended with Sarah's world burning down. She was hanging laundry in the backyard when her father stormed out of the house, face purple with rage, waving a piece of paper like a weapon. "What is this?" he roared. Sarah's hands went numb. It was a note, written in Cole's rough hand, asking her to meet him at the old mission ruins south of town. She had been foolish enough to keep it hidden in her Bible, the one place she thought her father would never look. "You've been meeting with him," Sheriff Montgomery said, and his voice broke on the last word. It wasn't a question. The betrayal in his eyes cut Sarah deeper than any blade could. "You've been sneaking around with the man who murdered my brother." Sarah dropped the wet sheet she'd been holding. "He didn't murder Uncle James. It was a fair fight. James drew first." Her father's hand cracked across her face before she saw it coming. She staggered back, tasting blood, shocked into silence. In 23 years, he had never raised a hand to her. "Don't you dare defend him," her father said, his voice shaking. "Don't you dare stand in my house and make excuses for that killer." Sarah touched her stinging cheek, feeling something fundamental break inside her. "This isn't your house anymore, father. It's a tomb. Mother's been dead 3 years, and you're still dying with her." The words came from someplace deep and desperate. "You've let hatred consume everything good you ever were. I barely recognize you anymore." Sheriff Montgomery stepped back as if she'd struck him in return. "I loved my brother," he said quietly, and suddenly he looked every one of his 52 years. "James was my best friend, my partner, everything. Cole Garrett took him from me. And now he's taking you too." The pain in his voice almost made Sarah take it all back, almost made her apologize and promise to never see Cole again. Almost. But she had tasted truth and freedom in Red Rock Canyon, and she couldn't swallow lies anymore, not even for her father's sake. "Cole's leaving," she said. "He's heading to California in 2 days. He asked me to go with him." The silence that followed was deafening. Her father's face went from purple to bone white. "You're considering it," he said. "My God, Sarah. You're actually considering running away with an outlaw." Sarah straightened her spine, found her courage in the memory of sage-colored eyes. "I'm more than considering it, father. I've decided. I'm going." What happened next would haunt Sarah for the rest of her life. Her father drew his gun and aimed it straight at her heart. His hand trembled, but his eyes were steady and cold as winter stars. "No," he said. "You're not. I'll lock you in the root cellar before I let Cole Garrett destroy another person I love." Sarah's laugh came out harsh and bitter. "You'll shoot your own daughter to keep her from leaving? Is that what your hatred's made you?" For a long moment they stood frozen, father and daughter separated by 3 feet of space and an ocean of broken trust. Then Sheriff Montgomery lowered the gun, and Sarah saw tears on his weathered cheeks. "I can't lose you too," he whispered. "You're all I have left." Sarah wanted to comfort him, wanted to be the dutiful daughter who stayed and withered away in this town. But she thought of Cole waiting for her, thought of the life they could build somewhere far from Redemption Creek and its suffocating memories. "You're not losing me, father. You're losing the girl you wanted me to be. But that girl died the same day Mother did. I'm someone different now, someone who needs more than this town can offer." Her father holstered his gun with shaking hands. "If you leave with him, you can never come back. I'll hunt him until one of us is dead, and I'll consider you an accomplice to his crimes." The ultimatum hung between them like a noose. Sarah nodded slowly. "Then I guess this is goodbye." She walked past him into the house, packed a small bag with her mother's jewelry and a change of clothes. Her hands moved automatically while her mind tried to process what had just happened. She was really doing this. Really choosing a man she'd known for 2 weeks over her own father. It should have felt insane, but instead it felt like the first sane decision she'd made in years. When she emerged, her father was gone. The yard stood empty except for the forgotten laundry flapping in the breeze. Sarah walked through town in broad daylight, bag in hand, and felt every eye in Redemption Creek watching her. Mrs. Patterson clutched her pearls on the mercantile steps. Young Timothy Wilson stopped sweeping the saloon floor to stare. Sarah held her head high and kept walking. Let them stare. Let them gossip. She was done living for their approval. At the edge of town, she found Cole waiting with 2 horses and a concerned expression. "Your father knows," he said. It wasn't a question. Sarah nodded, touching her still swollen cheek. Cole's eyes darkened. "He hit you." Again, not a question. He gently tilted her face to examine the bruise, and Sarah saw murder flash across his features. "Cole, no," she said quickly. "We leave now. No revenge, no justice, no more blood. We just ride away and don't look back." Cole struggled visibly with himself, his jaw working. Finally, he nodded. "You're right. The past has teeth enough without us feeding it more corpses." He helped her mount one of the horses, then swung up onto his own. They rode east, away from the setting sun, away from everything Sarah had ever known. She didn't look back, afraid that if she did, her courage would fail. An hour outside town, Cole broke the silence. "We can still turn around," he said. "I won't hold you to this. Your father, your home, that's everything. I'm just a wanted man with nowhere to go and nothing to offer you but danger." Sarah reached across the space between their horses and took his hand. "You're wrong," she said. "You're offering me a choice. That's more than anyone else ever has." They made camp that night in a grove of cottonwoods near a stream. Cole built a small fire while Sarah unpacked the food they'd brought. The domesticity of it felt surreal after the day's drama. As they ate in comfortable silence, Sarah realized she should be terrified. She'd just abandoned her father, her home, her entire life for a man wanted in 3 territories. But sitting across from Cole Garrett, watching firelight dance across his scarred face, she felt only a strange, deep peace. "Tell me about California," she said. "Tell me what our life will look like." Cole smiled, and the expression transformed his face from dangerous to beautiful. "There's a valley north of San Francisco where the redwoods grow tall as heaven," he said. "A friend of mine runs a lumber camp there. He doesn't ask questions about a man's past. We could start over. I could work honest. You could have a garden, maybe a house with windows that face the sunrise." Sarah leaned back against a fallen log, letting herself imagine it. A small house with windows and sunrises. A life without hatred poisoning every breath. Children, maybe, someday. The dream felt fragile as spun glass, precious and improbable. "What if my father finds us?" she asked. Cole's smile faded. "Then I'll face him. I've been running for 5 years, Sarah. Maybe it's time to stop." He poked at the fire with a stick, sending sparks spiraling into the darkness. "But I promise you this. Whatever happens, I'll keep you safe. Even if that means walking away from you to keep your father's guns pointed at me instead." Sarah's chest tightened. "Don't you dare sacrifice yourself for me, Cole Garrett. If we're doing this, we're doing it together. No martyrs, no noble sacrifices. We face whatever comes as partners." Cole looked at her across the fire, and in his eyes Sarah saw everything she needed to know. He loved her. He'd probably loved her since that first moment in the general store when she'd chosen kindness over fear. And God help her, she loved him too. It was too fast, too dangerous, too completely insane. And it was the most real thing she'd ever felt. "Partners then," Cole said, his voice rough with emotion. They sat together under a canopy of stars, 2 fugitives from the lives they'd been assigned, building something new from hope and recklessness. Behind them, Redemption Creek slept. And ahead, California waited with its promised redwoods and redemption of a different kind. They made it 3 days before Sheriff Montgomery caught up to them. Sarah and Cole had been traveling carefully, avoiding towns and major roads, keeping to the high country where trees provided cover and streams hid their tracks. But Thomas Montgomery was the best tracker in 3 territories, driven by a hatred that made him relentless as winter. He found them camped in a narrow canyon, and he didn't come alone. Sarah woke to the metallic click of a rifle being cocked and her father's voice cutting through the dawn cold. "Step away from my daughter, Garrett." Cole was already awake, already reaching for his gun when he saw the 7 rifles pointed at them from the canyon rim. Sheriff Montgomery stood at the center, flanked by Deputy Harris, Old Man Patterson, and 4 men Sarah recognized from neighboring towns. All wore badges. All looked grimly determined. Cole's hand froze on his weapon as he calculated odds that couldn't be calculated. "Sarah, get over here," her father commanded. She stood slowly, putting herself between Cole and the rifles. "No," she said. "Sarah Elizabeth Montgomery, don't make me say it again." Her father's voice cracked like a whip, but underneath Sarah heard the fear. He was terrified of losing her, terrified that his daughter had chosen love over blood. "You're going to have to shoot through me to get to him," Sarah said, surprised by how steady her voice sounded. Her insides felt like water, but her resolve was iron. "I'm not leaving him, father. Not now, not ever." Sheriff Montgomery's face contorted with rage and anguish. "He's poisoned your mind. Can't you see that? This man is a killer, a criminal, everything we've fought against." Cole stood, moving carefully, hands visible. "Thomas, listen to me. I never wanted this. I never wanted James dead, and I sure as hell never wanted to come between you and your daughter." His voice carried across the canyon, honest and clear. "But Sarah's right. You're going to have to kill me, because I won't let her go back to a life that was suffocating her." Sheriff Montgomery raised his rifle to his shoulder. "That can be arranged." What happened next unfolded in a handful of seconds that felt like hours. Deputy Harris shifted his weight, sending a small rock tumbling down the canyon wall. The noise spooked Cole's horse, which reared and crashed into Sarah. She fell hard, her head striking stone with a sickening crack. Cole dove for her without thinking, without caring about the 7 rifles aimed at his heart. He caught her before she could tumble into the ravine below, pulling her back from the edge. Blood seeped from a gash above her temple, and she didn't move. "Sarah." Sheriff Montgomery's rifle dropped as he scrambled down the canyon wall, all anger forgotten in pure parental terror. He hit the canyon floor running, falling to his knees beside his daughter's unconscious form. Cole cradled her head, applying pressure to the wound with his bandana. His hands were gentle despite their trembling. "She's breathing," he said. "Pulse is strong. But she needs a doctor." Father and enemy locked eyes over Sarah's still body, and something shifted in that moment. Sheriff Montgomery saw how carefully Cole held his daughter, saw the terror and love naked on the outlaw's face. And Cole saw a father's heart breaking in real time, saw the man beneath the badge and the hatred. "There's a settlement half a day north," Deputy Harris called from above. "Doc Rams is there. We need to move her carefully," Cole said. "A head wound like this, we can't know the damage." Sheriff Montgomery nodded curtly. "You carry her. I'll cover you. Try anything and I'll end you where you stand, understand?" Cole nodded, gathering Sarah into his arms as gently as if she were made of smoke. She felt impossibly light, impossibly fragile. He'd held her just last night by the fire, felt her heartbeat against his chest as she slept. Now that heartbeat fluttered weak and uncertain, and Cole felt his own heart trying to tear itself free of his ribs. They traveled in grim silence, Cole on foot carrying Sarah, the mounted posse surrounding them. Every step felt like miles. Sarah remained unconscious, her face pale as bone except for the angry purple bruise spreading from her temple. Twice Cole stopped to check her breathing, to make sure she was still with them. Both times Sheriff Montgomery watched with eyes that held something new, something that might have been respect mixed with the hatred. They reached the settlement as the sun climbed to its apex. Doc Ramsey was an ancient man with steady hands and kind eyes who asked no questions when they carried Sarah into his small clinic. "Everybody out," he ordered. "I need room to work." Cole hesitated at the door until Sheriff Montgomery grabbed his arm. Outside, the posse dispersed to water horses and find food. Father and enemy stood on the clinic porch, neither speaking, both staring at the closed door between them and Sarah. An hour passed. Then another. Finally, Cole broke the silence. "I love her," he said. "I know you don't believe that's possible, but I do. I'd die for her." Sheriff Montgomery's jaw worked. "Love don't matter much when you've led her into danger. My daughter's lying in there with her skull cracked because of you." "No," Cole said quietly. "She's lying in there because you couldn't let go of the past long enough to see the present." The accusation hung heavy between them. "James has been dead 5 years, Thomas. 5 years of hate that's consumed you, consumed your relationship with Sarah, consumed everything. I killed him, yes. In a fair fight that he started. I've regretted it every day since. But you? You've kept him dying over and over by refusing to let him rest." Sheriff Montgomery's fist connected with Cole's jaw before the last word finished leaving his mouth. Cole staggered but didn't fight back, just straightened and waited. The sheriff hit him again, and Cole took it. Took every blow that should have been aimed at fate or death or the unfairness of losing a brother too soon. He took it until Sheriff Montgomery's punches lost strength and became something else, became the sobs of a man who'd held grief too long and too tight. The sheriff collapsed onto the clinic steps, face in his hands, shoulders shaking. Cole sat beside him, his own face bloody, and they grieved together. Two men who'd lost too much, who'd let loss turn them into versions of themselves they barely recognized. "I don't know how to stop hating you," Sheriff Montgomery said finally. 5 years is a long time to carry this kind of anger. Cole wiped blood from his split lip. "Then hate me. I can live with that. But let Sarah go. Let her choose her own path, even if it's a path away from both of us." Before the sheriff could respond, Doc Ramsey emerged. Both men jumped to their feet. "She'll live," the doctor said, and Cole felt his knees go weak with relief. "Concussion, nasty cut, but no fracture. She needs rest and quiet. Someone should watch her tonight." They entered together, father and enemy, and found Sarah propped against pillows, awake but groggy. A neat line of stitches closed the gash above her temple. Her eyes focused slowly on the two men in her doorway. "Dad," she said, then Cole. Her gaze moved between them, taking in her father's red eyes and Cole's battered face. "What happened?" Cole moved to the chair beside her bed, taking her hand carefully. Sheriff Montgomery stood in the doorway, something breaking and reforming in his expression. "What happened," he said slowly, "is I've been a damn fool." Sarah's eyes widened. Her father stepped closer, removing his hat and turning it in his hands like a nervous schoolboy. "I've let hatred rule me for too long, Sarah. Let it poison me against everything, even you. Your mother would be ashamed of what I've become." His voice roughened with emotion. "I still believe Cole Garrett wronged this family. I don't know if I'll ever stop believing that. But I can see that you love him. And I can see that he loves you." He looked at Cole then, really looked, without the filter of rage. "You saved her from falling. Could have run while I was scrambling down that canyon, but you stayed." "Always will," Cole said simply. Sheriff Montgomery nodded once, sharp. "I'm still going to be watching you, Garrett. One wrong move, one hint that you're hurting her, and I'll finish what we started 5 years ago." Cole met his gaze steadily. "Fair enough. I'd expect nothing less from Sarah's father." Sarah looked between them, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Dad, are you saying?" Her father took her other hand, the one Cole wasn't holding. "I'm saying go to California. Build your life. Be happy. And maybe, if you don't mind, write your old father once in a while. Let him know you're safe." Sarah pulled both men closer, creating a bridge between old hatred and new possibility. Outside, the sun began its descent, painting the settlement in shades of forgiveness and hope. The wounds weren't healed, might never fully heal, but they'd stopped bleeding. And sometimes that was enough. Sometimes that was everything. They left for California 3 days later, after Sarah's head cleared and Doc Ramsey declared her fit to travel. Sheriff Montgomery rode with them as far as the Nevada border, a silent guardian making sure his daughter reached safety before turning back to Redemption Creek. The goodbye was awkward and profound, father and daughter holding each other while Cole tactfully checked the horse's saddle straps. "You take care of her," Sheriff Montgomery said when they finally parted. "Or I'll track you to the ends of the earth." Cole extended his hand, and after a moment's hesitation, the sheriff took it. "I will. You have my word." They watched Thomas Montgomery ride east until he disappeared into the shimmering heat waves, taking with him Sarah's entire former life. She felt the loss like a physical thing, like cutting away part of herself. But she also felt lightness, the unbearable lightness of being free. Cole wrapped his arm around her shoulders. "Second thoughts?" he asked quietly. Sarah shook her head. "Not even first thoughts. I know where I belong now." They turned west together, toward the promise of redwoods and redemption, toward the terrifying possibility of happiness. The journey took 6 weeks, through high desert and mountain passes, across the Great Nevada Basin and up into the Sierra Nevada range. They traveled as Mr. and Mrs. Coleman, newlyweds seeking fortune in the lumber camps. Sarah learned to cook over open fires, to read weather in the morning sky, to move through the world without the weight of other people's expectations. Cole taught her to shoot, to track, to survive in country that killed the unprepared. They grew into each other during those weeks, learning the small intimacies that turned attraction into partnership. How Cole hummed when he was content. How Sarah talked to horses like they were people. The way they moved around each other with increasing ease, like dancers learning a complicated waltz. They encountered other travelers on the trail, some friendly and some less so. 3 weeks into their journey, a group of bandits tried to rob them outside Carson City. Cole's reputation preceded him, or perhaps it was just bad luck. Either way, 5 armed men surrounded their camp at dawn, demanding horses and supplies. Sarah's hand moved to the pistol Cole had given her, but he caught her wrist gently. "Let me handle this," he said quietly. He stood slowly, hands visible, and addressed the leader, a scarred man with cold eyes. "We're just passing through. Don't want trouble." The bandit laughed. "You're Cole Garrett. You're nothing but trouble." Sarah's blood went cold. Even here, hundreds of miles from home, her partner's past reached out with grasping fingers. The bandit continued, "There's a price on your head. $500, dead or alive. We could use that money." Cole's expression never changed. "You could try to collect it. But $500 split 5 ways isn't much. And at least 2 of you will die in the trying. Probably 3. Is $100 worth your life?" The math hung in the air, brutal and clear. The bandits looked at each other, courage wavering in the face of Cole's calm certainty. "Maybe we just take your woman instead," the leader said, leering at Sarah. That was his mistake. Cole moved like lightning, drawing and firing before the bandit's gun cleared its holster. The shot took the man through the shoulder, spinning him around. The other bandits froze, suddenly facing the reality that the man before them had earned his reputation. "Next one goes through something more vital," Cole said, his voice absolutely flat. "Ride away now, or I'll make widows of your wives." They rode away. The wounded leader needed help mounting, but his companions got him up and moving. Within minutes, they were dust on the horizon. Sarah realized she was shaking, adrenaline flooding her system. "You could have killed him," she said. Cole holstered his weapon and pulled her close. "I could have. Didn't need to. The point was made." He kissed the top of her head. "I'm trying to be a different man, Sarah. The man you see when you look at me. But sometimes the old man has to come out to keep the new one alive." Sarah understood then, really understood, what Cole was sacrificing for her. His past would follow them always, a shadow they'd have to outrun or learn to live with. The question was which would require more courage. They crossed into California on a morning that smelled of pine and possibility. The land changed as they climbed into the coastal mountains, becoming greener, softer, more alive than the desert they'd left behind. Sarah had never seen trees so tall or air so thick with moisture. Everything felt lush and welcoming, like the land itself was offering them sanctuary. They reached the lumber camp on a Saturday in late October, nearly 3 months after Sarah had walked away from her father's house. Cole's friend, a barrel-chested man named Mac who asked no questions and offered no judgment, gave them a small cabin on the edge of the camp. It had 2 rooms, a stone fireplace, and windows that faced east toward the sunrise, just like Cole had promised. Sarah stood in the doorway of their new home and felt tears start. "It's perfect," she whispered. Cole came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "It's a beginning," he corrected. "We'll make it perfect together." They spent the first week settling in, making the cabin their own. Cole started work at the lumber mill, putting his back into honest labor for the first time in years. Sarah planted a small garden and found work cooking for the camp crew. The routine was mundane, beautiful, everything she'd never known she wanted. But peace, Sarah learned, was a fragile thing. 2 months into their new life, a stranger arrived at the lumber camp asking questions. He claimed